Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of A Bazaar Podcast. As per usual, you can find us on YouTube as well as on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or via RSS feed for your podcast listening app of choice. Today, you will be joined by me, MetallFenix, as well as my co-host, Walter.
This is Walter. I'm rocking the sponsored apparel today.
And we also have guest of the week, Naatli. Why don't you
Hello.
start off with just tell people a bit about yourself for those who might not be familiar?
Sure. I'm Natalie, or Naatli, however you'd like to pronounce that. I'm a Bazaar streamer and content creator. I mainly focus on Dooley currently. I'm planning on playing some other characters in the future, but for right now, I mainly just play Dooley.
There you go. And how did you kind of end up with the bazaar?
Way back, I'm kind of old, unfortunately. So way back in high school, Hearthstone was super popular, and so I'd like to watch a lot of streams on it. And naturally, I saw Reynad streams, and then I eventually he stopped streaming, and I just checked up on what he was doing and saw the bazaar, and I've sort of like on and off followed the development since. And then eventually it came out, and I gave it a try, and I love the game since I've been here ever since closed beta.
There you go. That's funny. That's exactly the same as it was for me.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of people. It's kind of interesting that a lot of the Bazaar community seems to be a lot of like older than a lot of other game communities, just because I think a ton of us just like followed Reynad from way back in like high school or whatever, and then ended up
I
here.
think there's more to it than that, actually. I
Oh
think
yeah,
part of it is one is that it's a game where you can get up and leave in the middle of your run,
also
which
true. Yes.
I think lends itself to older audience who values that a lot more than like that's something I value super high about the game
For
is
sure.
that like I can go, I'm getting cat aggro or something. I can
Yeah,
go
your
and
cat, your kids, work from
yeah.
home, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, not that I really have that much else going on, but if I did,
If you did.
then I would be able to get up and leave my computer.
Hmm.
So I value that very highly, and also like I think the bazaar attracts people who there's something about other games that really grinds their gears. That's another thing is like in a way like Reynad it's like the game is like a reaction to what he didn't like about other games
Hmm.
in the genre. And so I think that that resonates with a lot of people who are older because naturally they've had a lifetime of being disappointed by game companies who took something they loved and kind of ruined it, which I'm sure has happened to me several times. I'm sure has happened to you
Yeah,
two
it
as
happens a
well.
lot. Yeah.
I think it's
So
especially prone for people who end up with the bazaar because I think there's also a lot of overlap with people who are into card games. Since it is sort of
Mm.
a card game, it's very card game adjacent. Was originally intended to just straight up be a card game and all that. And it's funny because card games tend to have slightly older demographics at this point because we are the ones that it was popular with when we were younger, the physical version, so easy conversion to digital. But it's also card games, I feel, that tend to go disastrously over time. So anyone who's been enjoying card games for a long time will have been burned very many times. Rest in
yeah,
peace,
exactly. I
I
Yeah,
mean,
guess,
to be
yeah.
those
honest, there's a lot of
legends. Yeah.
digital only games too that were completely ruined by their studios. But yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, card games like I mean, like obviously I used to spent my whole life practically playing Magic. You know what I mean? It was my
Hmm.
job,
Mm.
and it's just like the direction they took it is so sad. But like, what are you gonna do? You just hope that something you just hope that something better happens to the next thing, right? Like that's all you can do.
Yeah, I feel like on average, people who are into like MOBAs or FPS tend to be treated a little bit better at least than card games. As someone who's like, I've dabbled in
Yeah,
pretty most of it.
that might be fair, but
Hmm.
I think that like, but I also am like a person who was like hugely disappointed by what happened to like World of Warcraft, for example.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Like
that's fair
so
enough.
where I felt like, oh, they really like took away this like the soul of the game and really turned it into like a giant daily quest or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I don't know, it's not just card games is kind of
No,
is
I
kind of
think
my
MMOs are
point.
definitely another one of those that's become sort of a somewhat dying genre. Not in the sense that
Yeah.
there aren't any good ones, both for card games and for MMOs, but that similar to RTS as well, it's just not super easy to convert a new modern audience into that.
Yeah,
Uh,
especially MMOs seem to have a very hard time coming out with any new ones. Like the ones that are
yeah.
popular have been the same ones for like a decade or more.
I think it's weirdly, they've kind of got tough competition from stuff like gacha games.
Yeah, it
And
is. That is
yeah, other
interesting.
like lifestyle games I've heard them dubbed, but everything's kind of encroached on that market now. Every game wants to be your number one time vampire.
Yeah, they're kind of like gotchas, and especially kind of become like a social thing, much like
Yeah,
MMOs used to be,
yeah,
where you kind of like go into a community rather than just like playing cards or whatever.
yeah. Anyways, to loop it back to the main topic, of course, the bazaar. You mentioned that you've been playing some Dually. What have you been
Some
playing
dually.
on Dually this patch?
So this patch has been, it depends what you mean by this patch, I guess, but it's been a bit of a roller coaster over this season. On
Yeah.
this last like week or so, I've mostly been doing, I found Ignition Core has been quite good for me.
Hmm.
And also I've had some success with Crit Core and Weapon Core, although less so than Ignition. Ignition's definitely my favorite right now. And so on Dually right now, definitely the most popular setup, at least among like the higher level players, is using the item called Crude Tools, which lowers the cooldown of your techs by
Oh.
1 second. And then you basically like use that to make your cores go really fast, or duplicate it with a 3D printer to make it so you have basically a 1 second core that just spams and blows people up. Those are like the most popular kind of things going on right now for sure. And I've been trying out other stuff like the newly buffed like balloon bots and stuff like that, but I haven't had too much success with them quite yet. It seems like they're still a little bit struggling in the current meta, unfortunately.
I've been trying out those similar strats a bit too, and there
Mhm.
were a few finer points that I've been curious to ask a more dedicated Dually player about.
Mhm.
One of them is when it comes to Ignition Core, do you pay any attention to like RNG manipulation in terms of buying burn items early? I've heard that there's some level of waiting in regards to that.
I personally don't do too much with that. With Ignition Core in particular, you don't have that many burn items that you really want to run with it, at least in the current patch. The meta
Yeah.
is super focused on just making the core itself go really fast. So with Dually in particular, the kind of joke is that we're always looking for non-Dually items because all of ours are
Yeah.
pretty slow now. So stuff like Fang or Yo-Yo especially, or Nesting Doll go really well with Uzi, to make the core go fast rather than focusing on burn items. Although early on, grabbing some can of course be quite nice until you get your core going quick. But
Yeah,
no,
I've
I personally don't
mainly
manipulate it.
I've especially heard that it increases the likelihood that you will get that core as an option if you have burn items.
I haven't heard of that. I can't really verify that,
Okay, yeah.
unfortunately.
No,
So.
it's one of those things where I've heard it from a lot of high level players, but we obviously haven't been able to guaranteed like confirm it.
Yeah.
I think it was mainly that Nazer managed to get it like 38 out of 40 consecutive games when he was buying
Oh,
burn
interesting.
items or something. But I think that was before the primal core was added, so you'd probably
Yeah.
have slightly lower odds now.
Yeah. Before the primal core, only what you'd get 5 out of 6, and now you get five out
Yeah,
of seven
yeah,
options. So it'd be a little lower. I actually don't know. I'd be curious to find out because that would be
yeah.
nice
It is an
if there's a way to
interesting
manipulate
one.
it.
Yeah.
Um,
The
I'll
the other
definitely.
thing. Oh, go on, go on.
I was gonna say I know some of the devs talk in the Discord, so I'll ask them about that next time I see
Yeah.
them around.
Um, I've also been curious. So I've tried both Ignition Core and Weaponized Core, And I
Mhm.
did definitely find Ignition Core was a lot easier to just win with.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular you think of in order to make weaponized work, especially like in the earlier parts of the game?
So in the earlier parts of the game, Weapon Core, getting some like with it, finding a thing to buff is super important with Weapon Core, at least really early on. So if you get like any obsidian, a small fast obsidian item, like if you find like the obsidian fang from that one monster, etc., buffing that can help a lot. And also weirdly, flamethrower I found has been pretty good in early to mid game. It
Right.
falls off pretty hard because of they remove like the double scaling on it, but at least early on you can use it kind of as a good finisher for Weapon Core. But even just like buffing a pulse rifle can be okay, although they did nerf pulse rifle unfortunately. But yeah, just getting like a nice weapon to buff up, or getting some extra scaling for the core itself. So if you get like trained with a plasma grenade, stuff like that, you can kind of treat it like crit core and scale it up that way too.
So for a lot of the kind of middle section of the game, you'd play it a bit closer to the middle until you might have some kind of 3D print setup or thrusters with saddle or just something to make it really go crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of often what you got to do with a lot of dualies cores is just you got to play for tempo. So you got to like pick something that'll help you out early to mid game, but might fall off late. But you're just using it to buy time, and so you can find like that really good end game setup to pivot into. Although pivoting is just like switching out part of your board for the printer or whatever. Yeah, at least that's for me. I haven't had a ton of success with weaponized core myself this patch, but that's at least the times that I have, I've done something along those lines with like a nice weapon and
Yeah,
then
it
swap it out later.
definitely feels like part of the reason I swapped to Dooley. I'll talk a little bit about Vanessa,
Mhm.
but it was because it's been a lot of Mac for me
Yeah,
lately, and he stacks regions so aggressively that it feels
yeah,
like you need something that stacks even more aggressively, like Ignition Core, to
yeah.
actually be able to beat him in those mid game fights. And if you're picking weaponized core and then losing fights to Mac, then you're
Yeah.
in trouble.
Yeah, if Mac gets his regen up, pretty much the only thing you can do is one shot him. Or if you get your burn up to about their max HP, it'll tick like at the same time as the regen and kill them, which is usually easier to do than getting a one
Yeah.
shot with weapon core.
And that makes a lot of sense. Have you had kind of like the same perception that the big draw of Ignition Core right now is how good it is at dealing with those scaling characters in the mid game?
I think a lot of the draw of it is that it's really consistent and easy, and it's got a couple different build paths that can work. And then yeah, it works
Right.
really well against. So there's a lot of builds right now that kind of either build themselves a bunch of regen or they do a bunch of shield, which is very good against Ignition. But if they don't do a lot of damage, you can oftentimes scale up enough to just like blast through them because they don't scale quite as much as burn scales. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's part of why it's so good this patch for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. What would you say are your like favorite enchants to go with the respective cores? What do you usually look for?
Like the end games? Okay, so with Ignition Core, I already mentioned that. It's like crude tools, or you can also make printer. Sorry, it's crude tools printer is like the optimal
Yeah.
one because it goes down to 1 second and deletes them. Solar farm I've also found pretty good this patch. It
Okay.
requires like a little bit more. Like you really want the red firefly and then maybe like a spider and then something to make the solar farm go off fast. So like hotspot Uzi works really well for that. But I've
Right.
had success with those, and then usually like a shield or a healing enchant on the core if you can. With weapon core, it's pretty similar. Like the end game boards for it are obviously you can't use solar farm, but the tools board work pretty well with weapon core as well. Crit core is a fun one. So this one, it's definitely one of the like higher skill cap ones to get through the mid game with crit core, but the end game's really fun because it charges itself, so you can kind of like lower the
Right.
cooldown with like one tools, and then you can usually make it loop using like saddle thrusters to give it multicast, or you can use a charging station and then like some items with crit, and it'll just like fly incredibly fast and blow them up. It's quite a fun core. I like that one when it works. When it doesn't work, you go like 0 and 7, but when it
Hmm.
works, it feels real good. Companion core, unfortunately, a lot of the friends right now are lacking, and I don't know if there's any endgame boards where you'd want the companion core in your build, but generally, if you do run a friend build with it, you're trying to transition into like a Dualtron setup or something similar like that, and you're just using the core to kind of buy you time until you get the full Dualtron thing going. And then Armored Core, I pretty much never take. It's definitely one of the weaker cores currently. But you can do some fun stuff with it, either with like making infinites using Bunker and just giving yourself like a ton of shield and maybe heal if you can get a heal enchant on it, and then blowing them up with like a balloon bot or a force field, stuff like that. So you can do like some fun meme builds with it, but it does tend to struggle because you don't have a lot of great shield payoffs currently, and you just get killed by poison pretty often. And then what else? Oh, Primal Core. Primal Core is also tough. You can do some fun dino builds with it, but it usually requires you to have like a duplicated dinosaur or something along those lines to really make it pop off, because we don't have enough relics or dinosaurs that really work super well with it currently. But in the future, maybe, or if you can steal some with the time machine item, the temporal navigator, stuff like that. Did I miss any? What other core?
Oh, the core, actually.
Oh, just the core. Oh, the core's a fun one too. So you can do again the 3D printer tools thing, but you can put it on the right side of the core so it self-charges and it loops extremely quickly. That one's fun. Kinetic cannon is pretty fun with that one. I've had a few successful runs with that. And then the most common one is nitrogen hammer, although that works with any core because usually you dump the core for nitrogen hammer freeze builds. With the core, you can kind of transition into them a little earlier using the core to charge up the freeze items, which helps your hammer go off a little bit quicker and so on. So that's one of my favorite end games for that one. Or just making a bunch of meme builds because it works really well with cross-class items.
Have you been actually playing any hydrogen press lately? I've heard some people are not super high on it anymore after the change to hydraulic press, I mean, of course.
Hydraulic press, yeah.
But after the changes to the level 7 upgrade, I've heard a lot of people play it less.
It's definitely a little harder to make it work, but if you get lucky and get like some upgrades on it and get it early enough, it can be pretty fun. The main issue with it is that it requires like very specific items, like it needs specifically like the battery, or sorry, it needs specifically like the big red button or remote, and like only those work with it. So if you can get it and get those items, it works really well. I've had a couple fun runs, but it's just one of those ones where like getting the pieces together is the main challenge of it rather than like piloting it or making decisions or anything like that. Yeah.
I guess it is a lot more possible once again to go for it if you're willing to commit early enough that you just eat your, like if you find it before level 7, now you can just eat your core.
Yeah, you can eat your core.
Use the guaranteed core upgrade that they gave back on the hydraulic press, and that kind of like solves the issue I was having.
Yeah, you just have to but you'd only really want to commit to that if you find the remote before level 7. So it's kind of it's a little bit scary if you don't have that. But yeah, it's definitely something you can do because it does get that tag. Or you can eat a combat core as well.
It's an interesting one. What does actually your ideal nitrogen hammer board work? As we can tell, I'm no better than last episode.
The hydrogen press.
No, you're good.
The hydrogen hammer.
It's okay.
He loves hydrogen.
I failed chemistry. I didn't actually fail chemistry, but it's funnier if I say that I did. So
it's fine. With Dooley's got a ton of like really confusing items. Like there's nitro and also nitrogen hammer, and then there's pulse rifle and a plasma rifle and a plasma grenade. It's But anyway, with nitrogen and hammer, there's like a few really fun builds you can do. The most like optimal one I've found is you put you use like fiber optics and a 3D printer, so you get like a whole bunch of fiber optics, and then you can just use an Uzi to basically instantly fire like a cryosphere or a stopwatch, which freezes every item on the board, and then you can just have the hammer itself with radiant, or if it's optional to have radiant, but you can have radiant to make it just continuously fire, which is quite fun. I like that one a lot. But pretty much anything involving cryosphere works pretty well. Oh, cryo sleeve is also really fun. That's that one. It's like a neutral item. Yeah, that's also really fun to run with nitro hammer for sure. So yeah, those ones are probably my favorites. So like the one where you use a ton of fibers to like just charge the cryo really quick, or cryo sleeve are my favorites.
Put it up on the screen for anyone who's
there you go.
Familiar. It's this guy that just
from Gassio.
Yeah, it's fun
For
because
a
it.
second, freezes itself and adjacent items. You get some free shielding, and it also has the duration on your own
Yeah.
items.
But the fun thing with that item is it can freeze passive items and they still count as frozen. So you put like a metronome next to it and it still counts, but it doesn't actually freeze any of your stuff. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun tech. And then the enchants on Cryosleeve also go crazy if you get like obsidian. It's like when any item gains freeze damage. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Works with burn, works with poison as well.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And it is tagged with apparel, so
Yep.
Boisson does carry it. That's usually the
Yep. He
easiest
also
way
has
to at least have shots at finding
Wait,
it.
what did you call him? Hold on.
Isn't he Guazzo?
it's like
It's
Gaseo.
Gassio.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
Gassio.
no, I think it would
Because he's
be
made out of
pronounced.
gas.
Yeah, but
No,
I
he
think
pronounces it himself. He says
Oh, does he
Gassio
say it?
Vapotino.
Okay.
Yeah, he says it. Trust me, I'm a big Gassio
that's
head.
fair enough,
I
that's
was
fair
walking
enough.
around all this week, like bothering my
Gassio.
wife, going, "I'm Gassio Vapotino." Like all,
There
she
you go.
loves
Got
it.
some good lines.
I have been corrected. I wasn't familiar with the culture of. I think they have a name for it. He says it.
Yeah,
but,
he's from a
yeah.
planet where everyone's made out of gas, and
Yeah,
he's the
what's
only one
what's
who
the
wears
name
clothing.
of the planet?
I don't know.
This
It's like
is
it
now
sounds like
you're being
Jupiter a bit.
checked. Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you
I'm
truly
being
a
lore.
real
I'm being lore checked.
Gassio? Yeah, are you a real Gassio fan?
Oh
That's right,
no.
fake fan.
Yeah, fake, yeah, fake fan of gas. I'm really a fan of the items he sells.
Yeah, we
That's
gotta have
the
a Gassio avatar next week now.
okay. Sure,
Be good one.
that can be arranged.
Yeah,
We can do
redeem
that.
yourself.
Right now,
Yeah.
I got I have sponsored apparel on, which
Yeah.
he does sell.
I
He can
don't
offer
like
you the sponsored apparel.
apparel. It's a very rude item.
No, it's a extremely fun item. What do you? Well, we'll have to talk about it, I guess.
It's rude. I don't like what it does to me personally. Yeah, no, that's good. It's always funny because I feel like Dooley players are quite in agreement on roughly what is good and how you do it, but
Mhm.
it might be the character where there's the most just like slight nuance to. I've never had two Dooley players on the podcast say exactly the same things about the character.
Yeah, there's like some different play styles you can do with them for sure, and there's people that make a lot of different things work. So like I know someone you had on here before was like Magma Burn. He plays like
Yeah.
really differently than a lot of other people, but
Mhm.
he has like a ton of success with it. So there's definitely a lot of different ways you can play him for sure.
Okay. I'll be pretty brief because most of what I've been playing is what we have been talking about, the Dooley stuff. At the start of the season, I was playing Vanessa. Mostly like after the first wave of nerfs, I was still playing Vanessa. I was still finding it fairly successful, but then at some point, all of the Pygmalion players started being really consistent at finding scaling stuff in the mid game, and then it got even worse when all of the Mac players came along with a ton of regen. And I've been feeling like there are a lot of things you can find on Vanessa in the mid game that scales enough to deal with a decent amount of that kind of stuff. But since she's starting to have a lot of items in her pool now, a lot of the time I've also been feeling like I don't find the items that are good into the kind of actual meta that I'm facing. And then I've been finding that it gets really tough because you oftentimes face just like 2, 3 brutal matchups in the mid game. You don't have access to that reliable keg pivot either, and a lot of the time it can just be tough to find something that closes well. Not to the point that I think she's weak. You still have Clamra, you still have holsters at gold. If you get them to diamond, it's more or less the same as it was previously. I wouldn't be surprised if people who play her a lot are having quite decent success with it, but I ended up feeling a little bit frustrated myself, and then I felt like if the issue is that I'm having difficulty finding consistent pieces in the mid game, well, that's kind of Dooley's entire thing is having consistent pieces in the mid game. So then I felt like,
Yeah.
well, no reason not to just play Dooley then and do that. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I've heard from some people that play Vanessa at like high level that she's pretty good, but she's also really hard to play this last season just because
Yeah.
of like how many items she has and all like the different weird things you have to do to get to different paths to end game
Yeah,
builds.
it's very difficult to like. You don't get clear signals for like what direction you're going. It's like always kind of up in the air. I've
Mhm.
noticed.
Yeah, whereas
Um,
Dooley's like you got the core, you're going around that kind of a thing. It's
yeah, and
much more
it's
clear for
not.
sure.
It's definitely not bad, and it can be quite fun. I think a lot of the time it just depends on how much focus I feel like I want to put in. Dooley is very nice in that sense of
Mhm.
like just being the character when you wanna put on some music or you're having to like multitask something else at the same time and you're just grooving and pressing buttons. Dooley
Yeah,
is so good for that.
you can get some reasonable results on him just kind of autopiloting for sure.
Yeah. And it's definitely not like he doesn't get interesting decisions to make or
No, no.
build variety. He still gets all of that anyways, but I definitely feel like he's at this point in time. I've argued with Sixten about this in the past because I didn't used to think that Dooley was the easiest character. And I don't think he is still from a purely like new player perspective. Learning Dooley can still be pretty tricky.
Yeah.
But at this point, he's become a lot more streamlined than some of the other characters. Mac, you need to do some pretty, there's a lot of nuance to maximizing your gains from the quests, and then,
Yeah. And like the
um,
positioning of the board and stuff.
yeah, and then Pygmalion obviously has the whole economy micromanagement mini game that's very intensive in terms of just the effort you have to put in to do it perfectly.
Mhm.
And then of course Vanessa just keeps getting more and more complexity with pretty much every single new expansion that's added to her, which I do think I like that that's the direction she's going as a character.
I mean, I wasn't. Vanessa feels
So
like
yeah.
she has the smoothest pool, right? She has the most like interwoven connections between her
Yeah, like
archetypes,
cross
like
synergies, yeah.
yeah, like the most densely connected like parts of her kit. Whereas
Yeah.
I feel like Mac especially is like the opposite, right? Where Mac's lines are
Yeah.
very, very far away from one another and you have to commit hard and stuff.
I
So
think that especially became way more true with the how much more kind of slow package support is in the latest set. I just need to figure out how exactly you sort of consistently assemble that part. And I
yeah, I mean,
think
so many of the
yeah,
pieces like flow into each other, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's tough to know like when to drop this card and pick up this one, and it's very. I agree with you. It's quite difficult because the decisions are ambiguous as to what's going to
right.
be
And it's
stronger.
very unclear, kind of what is your entry point into getting into it. It's not quite like I find even some of the historically trickier ones like Freeze on Pygmalion, I've still kind of found that if you really want to get into Freeze, you just have to buy the first Freeze card you see, and that will
Yeah, you
solidify
kind of
your
have to like
Freeze.
brute force your way into it. Yeah, a bit.
Yeah,
You have
and a
to
lot
bust
of the
through the door
time,
because there's no
yeah.
bronze card that puts you in the
Right,
building
and with
early.
with Dually, you just if you want to be on a nitrogen hammer build, you buy the nitrogen hammer, and then after
Mhm.
that, you just pick up anything that freezes.
Yeah,
You
any
kind of go
freeze item works,
together.
yeah.
But with Vanessa, I found a lot of the time it's very like, oh, you fool, how could you go for dock lines when this was clearly the Sea Dog Saloon angle? Now you're gonna struggle immensely or whatever. I always feel like I'm doing something wrong clearly because I watch other people who are way better than me at Vanessa do it, and they just make it look so easy. But then I do it, and I'm like, I've been misled, deceived. It's a lie. It was never easy. Yeah, that's my experience with Vanessa. Oh. Anyways, Walter, what have you been up to?
Well, as you can tell, I have been completely, sponsored apparel, display case, wrist warrior, maxing, absolute degen mode. I mean, I'm still playing silk when you get the silk, you play the silk. Like you don't like look a gift horse in the mouth, as they say. But like in general, my main game plan is like go to every medium shop possible on day one, re-roll every single shop day one, find Piggle's launcher, Gonjo, or Piggle's launcher showcase and two small weapons. Um and yeah, triple scale my way through the early and mid parts of the game with the Gonjo Piggle's launcher stuff. And then as soon as you encounter 28-hour fitness, drum, whatever, you can get off the bus right there and like you have your build. Or you can just like move straight into like sponsored apparel, display case, start value maxing your stuff for bad blocker, and then you can with just sharp, like you don't actually need a scaling item, you just need sharp corners. So especially if you have sharp corners at gold or higher, you don't actually need 28-hour fitness or really anything else. You just need wrist warrior and either display case or um sponsored apparel. And then you can also like there's other ways to scale your damage too. You could do like billboard plus boar market skill. You can do like I have obsidian bad blocker with like with a defensive stance, so you have like the reverse scaling where you're scaling the shield. So you actually have a lot of ways to get through the mid game even without ever finding 28-hour fitness or drum. And then also the other, it like kind of goes the other way too, right? So if you're in 28-hour, then obviously like you're going to be doing the bad blocker stuff. But if you're in drum, you can just have sponsored apparel wrist warrior on your drum board, and it's like excellent. Like because what you do, that leaves you like slots for like just your like 4 or 5 fastest items. So you just like you can either have like for example, you have the sponsored apparel like enchanted with obsidian. That's like just having your drum enchanted with shielded and obsidian. And like you take off your two worst weapons, and then you're now like it's like you have like a triple enchanted drum plus your 4 best weapons, and that usually is beating the crap out of just one enchant on your drum and uh like your 6 best weapons or whatever. So like there's lots of ways to kind of incorporate the sponsored apparel wrist warrior stuff into the existing lines, but then they're also their own build in and of itself. In fact, it reminds me of, do you remember Metal the patch where you made the Mac guide with
Yeah,
it when
yeah.
his pack came out, right? And you have the self-poison weapons archetype.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, and you just like this is just a build. If you have the skill toxic, this is just your build, right? Like you don't need moose staff, you know what I mean? Um
Yeah.
and it's the same thing with sharp corners, right? It's like if you have wrist warrior and either sponsored apparel or display case and sharp corners, that can just be your build. You don't need any additional item to be your scaler. um I mean, if you do, that can be good also, right? Like sometimes it's good to just have both. um
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of like 28-hour fitness is the moose staff, drum is poppy field, like the sponsored apparel is like sponsored apparel slash display case is like rapid injector, and then like the wrist warrior is like is like the adrenal converter, you know what I mean? And like your yo-yo is spider mace. But it's like basically like it's almost in a way it's like the same thing. Like you're assembling the like one of each of these types of pieces, and then that is like a made board, but like you can substitute like a skill for one of those pieces, which is really really powerful when like instead of a large item I just have a skill that does like almost as much, and in a way is better. Like sharp corners is the reason it's so strong is because instead of reading when you use a shield item, do scale your weapons, it says when you shield, scale your weapons, which is not how 28-hour reads. 28-hour reads when you use a shield item. So when you're doing the Wrist Warrior sponsor power / display case thing, it scales sharp corners unbelievably fast, like much faster than it scales 28-hour. So that's kind of like the key if you're interested in playing this thing, understanding that and the distinction between like how to like what 28-hour boards need to accomplish to scale their weapons versus what a sharp corners board needs to accomplish to scale their weapons, because they're different. So like the 28-hour board like needs to have bad blocker go off, so you get a bunch of shield item uses to scale the damage on the yo-yo. Whereas with sharp corners, you just have to use, if you have sponsored power wrist warrior, you just have to use any item. So you can just have like anything looping. It doesn't even like matter that much. You can just have random toys with Piggle's board, and just like everything's charging everything, and it doesn't like they could be like marbles and stuff, like it doesn't actually matter. So there's like a ton going on there, like so much more than I thought. And there's also like another totally different new archetype, which is like burn Piggle like non-weapon toys, which is itself like a new archetype that I haven't spent much time playing myself, but I've watched Whispers play it a ton, and he's having a really good success with like burn Piggles, basically just like I don't know how better to describe the build of model ship, the matchbox, that what you would expect. It's like seems like a powerful tempo line. So there's that build. There's like I think the card streaming setup has revived Kiowas as like a viable strategy. So if you remember, Kiowas when it first came out was overtuned and was like kind of took over the ladder for like maybe like a 2-week period where it was pretty strong. And then the scaling on it was nerfed pretty substantially, and it basically has not been strong since, right? Like it would be rare to encounter it, and if you tried to play it yourself before this this card pack, like you would not be doing yourself any favors. Um, Maybe you could make it work if you got Obsidian and like a very high roll and very fortunate chops and stuff, but like in general is not super strong. But the ability of streaming setup to give it like full crit and increase its value, like it is for sure back to being a worthy contender in terms of pig builds. So I actually like, last week I had some gripes with the pack, like in terms of, and I still like those things are still true. Like gaming house, Pigglestorm Gaming House is definitely, how I put it, it's true to life in that just like living in an actual gaming house, it sucks. So yeah, so that card's not super good, but honestly, like the pack has added so much to Pig that I think it's a success anyway, even with Arena being diamond only and like basically you never find it, and um with Money Furnace still not really being a playable item. I think even with those two things, like overall, I'm still super happy with how it landed, just because I think the new cards are super. Like, I actually really like this, like the weapons and shield like style, right? Like it's kind of like I don't know if Natalie, if you've ever played Magic, it reminds me a bit of Jund in Magic.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a mid range build that has like a uh that has some broken stuff going on, and that's kind of a build that attracts, or kind of a, I don't know, a line or a style that attracts me a lot, like, because it goes over the top of other fair stuff, but is
Yeah.
potentially weak to like one shots or really fast combo kind of stuff. So I think that like that those kind of builds and navigating that kind of style of game is really something that I enjoy. So I'm really like, I dig the new pack. I would even say that like there's some things about the Wrist Warrior stuff that is a little Dually like, in that
It
it's
definitely has
like,
like that vibe for sure.
yeah, that there's adjacency stuff, and you care more about, and also like you're more inclined to grab skills like, whatever, rear shielding and stuff like that, that like on Pig in previous patches, like you really didn't care about, like you would just pretty much
Yeah.
never take skills like that. But now it's like way more interesting when you're putting it on a shield item that's going to shield literally every single time you use an item, to put a flat shield bonus on, uh as a skill. So I think that like a lot of the like fun kind of like board positioning puzzles that is like kind of the hallmark of Dually in my mind, which is something that like I always enjoyed. Dually, like the like kind of inherent puzzle of the core of like what goes on what side and what goes on. I mean, even though for many patches it's like solved for those patches, like obviously like right now if you're doing crude tools ignition as you were describing,
Yeah.
right, it's like trivially easy to know where to put your items, right?
Usually,
but
yeah.
but for much of Dooley's history, or for some of Dooley's history at least, that wasn't always the case, and
Yeah.
you sometimes have like those actual interesting decisions where you're like bound, especially with like weaponized and stuff, where you
Mhm.
really, or critical core, where there's really like lots to consider, and like, okay, if the fight lasts 10 seconds, this is optimal. If the fight lasts 15 seconds, this is optimal. Um, so I really like that aspect, and there's a bit of that in these new Pig cards, in that like the toy stuff, there's much more adjacency going on. There's, model ship, there's Wrist Warrior, all of specific kind of positioning requirements, which is not something that actually has been part of Pig's kit very much, right? Like in the past, Pig is like 5 square items, herp derp, right
Yes.
handed, goes on addle. Like it's not very tough to figure out like where to put your items. Or it's like, I have a money tree. Like like setting up your Pig board has not been super complex in the past. But I'm glad that with these new cards, that there's like more of that in his kit, because I actually find that fun and engaging.
Yeah, I really like
So
those parts of the game for sure. Makes it unique compared to a lot of other like games and auto battlers and stuff. Is like the puzzle of setting up your board for sure.
yeah, and there's like so many different. That's kind of like what I like about the Bazaar, is like you can opt into the skill tests that you enjoy, right?
Mm.
Like I can, if I like min maxing stash, then I can opt into playing Pig. If I like min maxing board, I could opt into playing Dually, and sort of I can pick the puzzles that I'm gonna get to solve on the run, and I really enjoy that. So
For
yeah.
sure, for sure. I am curious. So, like, when you're playing Pig, what is like, what's like an enemy you dread to come across? Like when you're like, oh god, it's one of these again. Like,
I
what
mean,
would that be?
it's just Mac, right? Like
It's
Mac is
just
your
Mac.
count. Well, okay, so depending on the point in the game, right?
Mm.
So it in the early and mid game, for sure, Mac is your biggest predator. Like there's some like countermeasures you can take. Like for example, when you're playing Silk, I almost always am sideboarding a textiles.
Mm.
So I keep a textiles with me for between days 2 and like 7 or 8. I keep a textiles in my stash almost always for the Mac matchup. And
Mm.
also sometimes I play it against Vanessa depending on what my other options are. I mean, sometimes I even play against Dually depending on what my, like, obviously if you have nothing else with
Yeah,
Silk, very very often you're in the position where your other cards on your board don't really matter that much. So you play
decorative.
like random stuff. So you play random stuff. So there's like, you have some sideboarding options, but in general, Mac is like your predator, right? Like your strongest day one boards of like robe stuff or whatever are completely
Oh, he just poisons you.
invalidated by
Yeah.
poison, and oftentimes like regen is out scaling your weapon scaling, even if you have like a on tempo scaler. So if you like have silver showcase on day 2, and then you're just like scaling weapons, you're still probably losing to Mac poison regen build on average.
Yeah,
So
because you kind of got to like burst them down, and Pig's not great at that
yeah,
early on.
exactly. So it's like it's tough to face Mac in that portion of the game. I will say that like as you get deeper and deeper into the game, unless you're playing Freeze Pig, which is weak to Mac the entire run, if you're playing most of the other Pig builds, you're actually stronger. Like I would actually be more scared of Dooley, I think, on like day
Interesting.
14 than Mac, because I think Dooley on day 14 is really likely to freeze me out.
That's fair. Yeah, if Aduli makes it to day 14, they probably got some weird stuff going on for sure.
Yeah, so there's definitely some like what composition effects, right? That was one of our topics of a previous podcast where like there's something about the late game dualies where they're likely to be like like force field or something, just something scary, right? Like
Yeah.
just something terrifying. And so there's that. I will say that like I'm not scared at all of Vanessa on this patch. Like you were kind of soft selling that metal, that you thought that Vanessa was kind of a little weak. I think she's pretty stained. She's pretty in the dumpster, at least from the perspective of playing Pig. I think if you're playing Mac, then maybe you're getting beat up by Vanessa's a lot more because you're just getting bursted by them in the early game. But from a Pig point of view, I feel stronger into Vanessa than I have in a while as Pig right
I
now.
think it's
Just
like
because I'm
especially
shielding, right?
yeah, but it's also especially that whole point of like with her boards being so skill intensive to put together. It's tough if you're the Vanessa player, but if you're going up against the Vanessa, it's also like very likely that the person you're facing just didn't
Yeah,
quite
didn't play
have
the
it
run
put together
optimally. Like that's
either.
not, yeah,
Yeah.
like no shame about it. Like for sure, like the difficulty of the characters definitely influences the power level of the average board you face. I think that's not a controversial
Yeah. But it is very
thing to
funny.
say.
It's very funny too, just in general, the fact that, as you mentioned, I think playing against the those Pygmalion builds feel a lot like playing against the Mac builds did at when that pack came out initially, the Self Poison. And then
Oh yeah, yes.
it's very funny to see how we've kind of gotten that like almost shuffle where what used to be pretty core to Mac now feels like it's not a big part at all of how he's currently playing, but it's become a really big part of how Pygmalion is playing instead.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like the weapons line of Mac is, so since this most recent hotfix where they also buffed the potion launcher stuff with
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
recycling bin, now you have even less incentive to be carpet. Like it
Yeah,
used
yeah.
to, so it was like already like carpet was a little bit hurting because first of all it was harder to find the carpet if you don't get Isla on day 1 because they added 5 bronze mediums to the Mac pool.
Hmm.
So it's hard to find the carpet if you don't get Isla. That was the first problem, and then the second problem was it's hard to find both the letter opener and the uh
Bottled explosion, is that what
yeah, and
that
the
is? The crit potion, yeah.
bottle lightning. Yeah, sorry, I
Bottle
always
lightning, that's it.
yeah. So like and carpet got nerfed to 7 seconds. So there's that part of it too, right? So it also was one of the few Mac cards that actually did get bonked. So with that, like carpet is even more like in the gutter than it was previously because now it's like, ooh, there's this really powerful, and I actually lost to it today. I had a run. I was 9-0 on Silk, and I lost to vial launcher recycling bin on
Yeah,
day 10.
those things are scary, man.
Yeah, and we're straight. It's not that I didn't get to go. Like he straight up burned through my shield entirely with fiery vial. Was it obsidian vial launcher? Fiery. I don't know, something. But the point the point being is that that build is legit, and it's super scary to face. And if they know all of the tricks where like you play 2 bronze potions plus like plus the plus a diamond haste potion and a it doesn't matter what the, well, ideally it would also be a diamond runic potion, and then
Mhm.
the 2 mediums, right? That version of the build, it's like you start at 1 second first of all. So because the potions have a 2 second cooldown, they like go down to 1 second. So even if your bin is not yet diamond, you still start at 1 second with the potions at bronze. And then like even if they don't have the double potion, like having the multiple sleep and noxious potions and just going absolutely crazy, throwing 2 second potions like and just triggering vial launcher like a trillion times. It's a very, very, very scary build, and they have lifesteal on the vial launcher from the runic, and they have haste on everything from the haste potion, and they got an enchant on the vial launcher, and you're extremely dead. So that is one to watch out for. But the point being is that like again, why am I ever hedging? Like, why do I ever want to be in the carpet line? Like, I want to be out of crit as soon as possible, so I could either play like the cool regen stuff or like some slow stuff, because Sands of Time is still just as good as ever. You know, even though Femur is hard to find, like the loops of Sands of Time with earrings and stuff, like all that power that's in that cluster of cards, that's still like totally intact. So there's still like a ton of power. Like you have to find a way to sometimes you can't find Femur, so you have to find a different way to like convert that into winning, but it's not that hard. And so it's just like there's so many things to do on Mac other than carpet. So yeah, that's my carpet is weak rant now. So I don't even know why we got on this topic actually. I mean, we just
No,
I don't
just
know how we
the
got here.
big shuffling of like how archetypes feel like they've
Oh
moved a
yeah,
lot.
how like Pig is like the early game weapons character right now. I
Or
get what you,
especially like that style of scrappy, I use skills to scale my weapons type
yes,
playstyle.
yes. Yeah. The more late game version of the sponsored apparel stuff is like like the parallel I drew earlier between
Yeah, yeah.
Injector and whatever. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like literally Drum and Poppy Field are 2 of the closest items in terms of like functionally how you use them in the game, like how your strategy to play the run of like get fast weapons is like extremely similar between the 2 cards, right? So there's already kind of this Pig Mac connection where they're the characters with like the stash management stuff, and then they also kind of have these cards that occupy the same space, right? Like the drum and the poppy field. But then also like I'm drawing this connection between 28 hour and what Moose Staff was on that patch also, because I think it's also similar, right? In that it's a
Yeah.
card that's like, I mean, I know Moose Staff is like an active item, but it's like it's like a large that converts the thing that you're good at creating, which is like shield, in the case of 28 hours, like shield triggers, converting that into damage. And with
Yeah.
Moose Staff, it's the same. It's like converts your regen into damage. So like you can see kind of the parallel between the 2 cards.
Mhm.
Obviously, Moose is gold now, and it's a bit of a different situation. But um, yeah, do you want to move on to the topic of the week? I think I'm
Yeah, we can
all
do
pig
that.
and macked out.
We thought that it would be a good time to revisit. This is one that crops up every once in a while, but it's also something that keeps changing over time, so it always feels worth revisiting when enough time has passed and it has changed again. But that is our thoughts currently on the various starting options. So I think we can let Natalie kick it off, especially
Sure.
because I think you're advocating for something that might even be the least common option currently.
The least common. Yeah. So for me personally, at least on Dooley, I really like the gold skill start, which I know a lot of people find horrifying because you have like no money to start. But I personally really like it, in particular on Dooley, because a lot of your early game items have like really low numbers, and so if you get some flat damage or flat burn, you can get some really fun setups going early on. Like you can get like a 70 damage pulse rifle or Uzi or something like that, and just kind of shred through people, which is quite fun. And rocket launcher in particular is really good with burn. But the main thing is like the gold that a lot of people have issues with, but you can kind of mitigate that as long as you have to be like really, really careful about like going into shops versus taking like the free nodes early on. But if you can navigate that, and like you gotta like, look at each shop and be like, what exactly am I looking for in here? Can I reroll this? If I go into this shop and I don't buy anything, do I reroll the next shop and stuff like that? You got to be very careful about your money, but if you can navigate that, I think it's very strong. And also sometimes you get some fun monster skills, which is always a good time. Oh, and the new skill they added, the supply cache, I think it's called,
Oh,
where it just
yeah,
gives you like a loot drop each day. That one's really fun with gold skill. I'd recommend giving it a try if you ever see it. But it is kind of controversial on Dually. A lot of people currently really like the enchanted start because you get a little bit of extra gold, and also because early on Dually in particular, there's a few very key small items that start at bronze. They're not like weapons or anything. It's stuff like crude tools and plasma grenade. But the moment you're past day 1, they get way more rare because at bronze you only have like it's like a 1 in 12. Whereas once you go past that, it's like a 1 in like 30 or something to find them. So a lot of people will like hunt really aggressively on the first day with the extra money. And then you also get 3 small bronzes to look at in the enchanted stars. That's kind of the argument for going with that one instead. I just personally don't like it because like if you get a bad enchant, I always get baited into re-rolling it at Mandala over and over, and then I waste a ton of time and it stays terrible. And then as for income, it's kind of just like super consistent on Dually, but it's kind of boring, so I don't like it. But if it's ever the best one on Dually, it usually means there's something that's way too forcible. So like when bugs first came out or dinos first came out, people would take income because it was so easy to set up the build. So you just kind of use the extra money to force it with extra rerolls and stuff. But yeah, personally, I really like gold skill, at least on Dually. Just a lot of good early game power, and it's quite fun, in my opinion.
I've found that one of the things that I think it helps a lot with income start is, of course, it does give the most money. And now that we kind of always have more board space than we used to in the early days, it can be really nice to just have kind of more consistent ways of making sure that you have items of decent quality to put in those slots.
Yeah, for sure. That is an issue with gold skill. Is if you get kind of unlucky with your early shops and you have to like reroll a little bit, or you don't get a good drop from like the day 1 monsters that you can sell and stuff. A lot of the times on day 1 you'll have like empty slots, or it'll just be some random trash you threw in there that you got from a free node or something. So that is definitely one benefit of using income or enchanted for sure.
Out of curiosity, when you are taking skill start on Dually, what is your like skill priority? Like, are you left right handed is the strongest? Like, what is your
So me personally, since I run ignition core a lot, I think the flat left and right, I think they're called like final spark and something ignition. I don't know, but anyway,
initial spark and final
initial
flame?
spark. That's the one. Yeah. So those two, like the flat burn left and right, I find that those are really strong because in particular you can use them with rocket launcher, or you can use them with like even just like welding torch or welding helmet can be good enough early to get you a couple wins, and then they can transition into the actual ignition core build. Flat damage is also quite good. It depends on the patch a little bit, but strength can sometimes be good. I don't think it is right now because we're not running as much weapon spam as we used to because a lot of those got bonked, but left and right can be really good for sure. It works really well with Uzi, works with pulse rifle, works with rocket launcher. Can work with dinos if you're setting those up, stuff like that. Gold, the cash skill, I pretty much always take it just because it's fun. You can get a lot of like cooldown reduction from that. You can get a lot of crits. You could potentially just get a whole bunch of regen as well, which is terrible, but you know it's the Gamba option. It's kind of fun. And then
do you click the defense grid?
I still click defense grid. It used to be basically a free win on Dually if you got defense grid before it was nerfed because you could run it with like the force field builds and just delete people all the time. Since it's been nerfed, you can't just do that for free anymore. You can still set them up, but it's more difficult. But I still take it because it's basically like 20% free HP. And since Dually has like so few ways to like increase our HP, like there's very few usable HP increase skills on Dually and stuff like that. So it's just helpful to give yourself a little bit more survivability to scale up So I do often take that one. I don't think I take it over the burn skills anymore, but I'll definitely take it over like poison or shield or things like that for sure.
Okay.
Crit can also be pretty good if you're running crit core. Sometimes it depends on the patch pretty heavily, but it's sometimes good.
Have you
And then
been
poison is terrible.
like what would you say you feel is the ratio at which you miss with the skill? Like outright
Oh,
just this skill isn't really going to do much for me at all in the run type miss.
so you can math it out, but I don't remember the exact numbers. But I'd say it's probably like maybe 10 to 20% of the time is you just whiff and get like all poison or poison and shield or poison and crit, stuff like that. So those are like the whiffs on Dooley.
Right.
And even then you can kind of make it work. So like if you get an early poison one, you can at least use it to win like the first couple days. You won't use it long term because none of Dooley's poison items really work later in the game. But you can use like a chem snail early with the venomous dose or whatever and blast
Yeah,
a
I
couple
think like
people.
weirdly, if you get the poison item, I bet poison is probably one of the strongest actually on day one.
Yeah,
Is
they
it,
want. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, if you get chem snail exactly with like the right or left poison,
Mhm.
like initial dose or whatever, then I actually assume that that's probably stronger on average than the
It depends.
burn ones on day one.
It depends what you hit. It can be for sure. If you're playing against like shield stuff, it's really good. However, the burn stuff, in particular, if you get rocket launcher, goes crazy because it's a three
Yeah, that's
multicast,
the
right? So it triples
multicast.
the. Yeah, so that one in particular is why I find burn really strong. It's just that item. But yeah, the poison ones are very good on like day 1 to 2, but after that they fall off pretty hard just because we don't have any end game poison items. So I tend to try to avoid those when possible, and most people do too. And unfortunately, our shield stuff is not great right now. There's a ton of poison max going around, so most people don't touch the poison skills if possible either. But yeah, about 10 to 20% is a whiff. And then sometimes it's like a 1% probably to get monster skills, but there's some really good ones you can get. Like Snowstorm is really good. That one Infernal skill is really good. Just a lot of like interesting scaling stuff you can get
You can get
is worth it.
the like CDR on your right and leftmost items, right? Like that skill.
Uh,
Like the
maybe
one that
they're rare
drops
enough.
from yeah, the one that drops from
Yeah, the Infernal
Infernal
dude.
Envoy or
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
I don't know if you can. I don't remember seeing it, but they're rare enough that I haven't seen all of them that you can get.
Oh
So
yeah, fair enough. They
yeah.
are extremely rare. I remember like I was a big gold skill advocate on Mac before
Mhm.
the change in XP from 4 board slots to 6 board slots.
Yeah.
Actually, honestly, it was until the quest cards were released. I was an advocate of skill start on Mac, just because the quest cards really, really incentivize you to go income, so you can buy a whole bunch of quest cards to sit in your inventory for the early part of the game. Like you just there's no character that more needs the money on day one than Mac. I would say.
Yeah, he's got
I
a lot
would
of stuff
say
to buy
so.
for sure.
Yeah. So but before then I was a big advocate for skill start just because carpet was so strong and the lot and like the having right-handed letter opener and carpet was just such a day one stomper. Like you
Oh,
would
for sure.
actually
Yeah.
just run over the whole game because everyone had 4 board slots and so you were just such a early game stomper that it felt like, man, I really want to do this most games. And then also like the right and left poison were good the whole game because of Poppy Field, like which
Yeah.
really loves flat poison. So like I've been a big skill advocate in the past. Obviously playing pigs non-healthy hoarders starting skills are horrible. They're not horrible. Like obviously, right and left-handed are still good on pig, but in general, like you really love the income, and I know a lot of people love enchanted item right now on pig. I'm still like an
Yeah, with the
income
pickles and
holdout.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but we should actually discuss that because I actually think that like I don't know, we kind of don't have a representative for enchanted item here
Oh.
necessarily, but unless metal, I don't know if you've been doing it on Dually, but um,
No, not particularly. I do hear that most people always say that the main reason why they go enchanted over income is just because a lot of people think income is a bit of a boring start, but I'm very fond myself of just feeling like I have more leeway to partially to do hedging and stuff, but especially I kind of see income start almost as being starting hell because it makes it so much easier to like invest early on in stuff like gold chocolates
Yeah, gold
without,
chocolates are.
especially like now that most characters have more stuff that they want to buy and might need to cycle through more stuff
Yeah,
to compensate for the more diluted pools. It feels a lot of the time like you really notice how
that's a
it
very
can.
interesting perspective, especially from the like perspective of Dooley, where like you really want to buy those first gold chocolate bars. I think
Yeah,
that's
they're very
less
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
important on Pig for sure because of the shield stuff, where
Hmm.
like it's going to be much more important if not your actual total HP bar, but like your ability to generate a high shield amount early on in the fight, so that you kind of like get over the hill from a scaling perspective and win the fight that way. So your total HP is often like not as, I mean, it's still very strong, right? Like obviously HP is still super strong, but it's like not as determinative of winning your early fights. Is a lot of times your early fights are like, did I have robe? Is my scaler a
Yeah, yeah.
silver? Like that's gonna be your decider.
Because I did definitely feel, even with income start on Dooley, a lot of the time I definitely feel the squeeze on my economy, even though
Yeah.
you have all of that extra gold. And the other thing is that I really like Curio on Dooley currently,
Mhm.
because the slow boosters are so powerful on Plasma Grenade.
Yep.
I think Plasma Grenade can feel like an item that you might have to cut in the late game if it still only has like the base level of slow, because 6 seconds isn't going to give you amazing uptime. But if you get that to like a 3 second slow, it's so easy to just have
Yeah, it's really strong.
infinite slow. But I always find that if you want to go to Curio, you have to be intending to also reroll, because otherwise you're spending your node kind of inefficiently. And
Yeah, I
because
agree with
they've
this.
right, they've made it very expensive at like a 4 gold reroll, and then in addition to really maximize the efficiency, you want to be willing to cycle a few like salamanders or magnifying glasses or something, because it isn't trivial, especially early on, to have 20 extra damage on your
Yeah, the
Uzi.
flat
It's
damage.
gonna
Yeah.
be kind of a reverse gold chocolates for your opponent if you do get it to deal 100 200 extra damage in a fight.
If
um
I were gonna give a pitch for income start right now, I would make two key points. The first one is that the better you think your character is, the better you think your hero is, the more you should like income start. Because especially if you think you have a really OP forcible line. Because I think
Yeah.
that what income start, people say it's boring, but what they really mean is that if they make if they pick income and then make the same decisions every single game, they'll keep ending up with the same items, which of course is true if you think about it. Like, but people don't like connect those two things, right? They're like, I think these items are good. I click income. I only buy the items I think I'm good. I think are good rather, and then it's like, well, why are all my runs the same? Well, it's because you're making the same decisions throughout the course of the run. So that's the first point. But the thing is that if those decisions lead to a 10 winner, then you should probably do that, right? Like if you're just trying to win, right? Like why would you do anything else? Why would you introduce the variance of like enchanted item into your game if you could consistently just build the same board every single time with income and get 10 wins? I mean, obviously it's not that simple, right? Like you don't literally have the same board every time with income. Um, and you don't get 10 wins every time with income either. I'm not making that claim, but I'm just saying that in general, the argument is the better player you think you are, and like the more strong you think your character and the more confident you are in your lines, the more that is pushing you towards income, so you can reduce variance as much as possible. The other argument is kind of the one Metal just made about re-rolling the shops, is that on day one, it's really strong to re-roll because you have 6 board slots to fill, and if you don't re-roll, it's often hard to get 6 board slots worth of good items onto your board. Because the shops are not guaranteed to show you, and especially on Pig, this is true. The shops are not guaranteed to show you on the first screen a lot of necessarily
Mhm.
super good items to play on your board. And so you need to be able to afford the reroll. Specifically on Pig, you really want to reroll Quick Soul on day one, and you really want to reroll Curio on day one, because for Pig especially, Curio also, in addition to having the most OP item in the game, egg, the number
Yeah,
one item
egg's
in the
pretty
game.
silly.
Um, Curio also has Knee Brace, which is insanely good on day one,
Yeah.
of course. Fang, which for Pig right now is at peak of power in Piggle's launcher early game meta, drum being good, etc. It's just such a good item, right? Fang is just like,
Mhm.
it's Fang. Claw I think is pretty viable day one for Pig as well, and then finally Crusher Claw, which is like the Pig only benefit of going to Curio, which is that like you click Curio node 1, you buy the Crusher Claw, you click Kimono node 2, and you have your like 10 wins in the bag. Like it's actually um again, it's not that simple. You can lose, of course, like you can mess it up somehow, but like there's kind of like this extra out on Curio for Pig where you can just easily go into Silkboard and as in the much maligned Silk board that I'm always the defender of. People hate losing to it, understandable, but it's very if you're good at executing it, it's a very strong and dependable line, I would say.
I will say though that I definitely get. I think at this point in time, since skills have gotten so much less appealing due to having wider boards and also being weaker overall, I do very much understand. Like, I think there's a much stronger case to be made for enchanted items than there have been in many points of time in the
Oh, I agree with
past.
that. I think Enchanted Item is at its peak power ever.
Yeah,
But I also
and
think that for most of the game's history, people were kind of trolling by picking it.
for sure,
So
but I will
that's
say I
my
do think it is the most fun start. Every time that I'm always tempted to click enchanted item because it's fun to just see which 3 things might I get.
yeah, no
That's just
Gamba, no
like,
future.
yeah, it's a very, you know, it's fun to gamba. And it's fun to have enchanted items, and so by that logic, gambling for enchanted items has to be really fun. But in my case, it's definitely mainly that I always find the constraints that early economy can place on you to also be very annoying. So I always value things that give me that leeway and flexibility quite highly, just because I don't like having to really, really, really min max just to determine if I'm gonna be able to afford a magnifying glass at Curio or whatever. So I do think that is one of the things that at least I wonder if it's for people who play the game an absolute metric ton, they probably get very used to that degree of extreme min maxing as well, which probably makes it feel much easier to just go for the enchanted item, or vice versa if you're a player that plays very little. And you're just not taking it that seriously, you also don't need to care about the extreme edge cases of min maxing. But
I mean, I
I
don't think Enchanted Item, even if it is worse, is very much worse than
Yeah,
Income. Like,
exactly.
no one is. You're not trolling right now by picking
Yeah.
Enchanted Item. I mean, you are if you pick it on Mac, but if you're picking Enchanted Item on the any of the other 3 characters, that's totally fine. Um,
Yeah.
so I think like that's actually good for the game. It's a very casual player friendly state for the choice structure to be in, which
Mhm.
is good. Like I'm not against enchanted item being good. I mean, of course, it's frustrating to lose to
I think
enchanted
in
items day
general
one.
it is very nice to if
Whatever.
income is overall considered the best strategy, but both of the other ones have very real upsides to the point that I think we've spoken about this aspect of it in a previous episode at some point, but I like things that have clear strengths and weaknesses because it rewards the skill expression of people who leverage the strengths of the strategy that they've chosen to pursue. And I think having that option, having a quote unquote less powerful way of playing the game that can reward you greatly if you're good at it, I think that's just really good to have in any game, really.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Is like if you're playing one build at 99% optimally, you're probably doing better than if you're playing a slightly better build at 90% optimally or whatever. Like
Yeah, yeah,
doing the thing you're doing well counts for an awful lot and probably counts for more as long as the thing you're doing is like kind of reasonable. If you're doing
yeah,
it at a super high level, then you're probably pretty competitive with people who are doing things that are theoretically stronger, but they're executing them poorly. So
yeah,
that's actually that's another good thing about the game. Like the fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh best strategies are not so far behind the best strategies that they like that are like bad even if they're played well. They're good when they're played well, and that's actually a strength of the game and
and I
a
think that
really great one. Yeah.
especially always leads me to gravitate towards playing the characters for whom that is like especially true. And right now, at least, I've been feeling a bit on Vanessa, like you need to manage to do something that's really broken for her to be good. Whereas on Dooley, a lot of the time, it feels like if you just end up doing something reasonable, both on this season and for most of last season as well, um, that kind of gets you there. I like playing the characters where it feels like the thing you're doing gets you there.
I could see most of the way there. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can sometimes just get like high rolled by other people, but you can usually just with something reasonable. I did
Yeah, I
have an
mean, I don't think we
interesting.
think that anything is always guaranteed to get you
No,
like
of course not.
like to me if something is guaranteed to get you 10 wins, like the word for that is it's broken, it's overpowered and
Yeah,
like it should be taken out of the game. Like I think that the it's just the idea of feeling like what you're doing even like could have gotten there if you had gotten like average luck or whatever. Like
yeah, yeah.
obviously you can get hot, yeah, like of course you can. We've all been there, of course, a
Just get
million times.
blasted. Yeah.
Yeah, just like you just encounter something ridiculous, like, oh, my last three opponents all had bonk. Like that was
Yeah.
fun. Like whatever. Like that. Okay, that's gonna happen to everyone. But
Mm.
yeah.
Oh, back on the skill start, or sorry, the different starts thing. I did notice
Hmm.
something interesting when you were talking about like income start and stuff like that. Is that a lot of the goals that you have when you pick skill start are very similar. You just have a different way of going about it. So
Yeah.
like like so getting those chocolate bars or getting like to go to curio, etc. You can do that with skill start, but the way you go about it is like giving yourself one really powerful item that just carries you for like 3 or 4 days
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it synergizes really well. So now you have that extra little bit of gold that you can use to spend on that and just rely on that item instead. So I think that's really interesting that they all kind of have like there's like different paths towards the same thing and just different play styles, but they all still kind
Yeah,
of work
that's
similarly.
very
Yeah.
much exactly what I mean when I say like having a playstyle where you leverage your strength. Because I think the
Yeah.
the worst thing you can do is like pick skill and play it like you picked income, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't force yourself to play in a way
skill
you're
feels
not comfortable.
strongest when you have that like clear through line from like
Mm.
the start of the game to like your end game build, right? So you mentioned like liking clicking the right and left burn
Mm.
skills because they give you a clear through line to ignition core and playing a build that you know you can get 10 wins
Yeah,
with.
they always
Yeah.
contribute towards, yeah.
Yeah, and like that's when skill feels the most satisfying. And like I said, with it felt that way in the past with Mac when
Yeah, yeah.
Poppy Field was your strongest line and whatever
You never had a
weapons were.
game where you couldn't use a poison skill somewhere.
Yeah, you could always use a weapon skill, a poison skill, or a regen skill. So you basically didn't whiff. And even
Yeah,
if you got the crit skill, it wasn't even like that bad. It was actually fine.
yeah.
I
So
It's
it
like
was.
don't think
you
I
don't
ever had to pick crit skill on Mac.
you
Yeah, I
never
mean,
like
Mac
it
has the
if you.
secret benefit of no shield
Yeah.
skills, right? Like that's
Oh
the
yeah.
benefit of Mac. Yeah,
Yeah,
is
Dewey
that he
doesn't
has
have any
this.
heal ones, so we get to dodge that one.
Ah,
Yeah, he
that's
doesn't
true.
have
Yeah.
heals. Yeah, he doesn't have heal skills or shield skills, so he
Yeah,
has
Mac's
like
skill
a
pool
more
is just so
pure skill pool.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, but he's so reliant on buying mediums in the shop on day one now that like I don't really
You're
think you
kind of
can.
forced into it, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's it's tough. I think Mac has some. Um, I think that it's like interesting. We talked a few months ago. Sixth thing would have said like, oh, Dooley has all these design problems, like, and I feel like they've really fixed a lot of the, you know, whatever you want to call like the
Yeah, for
narrative was like
sure.
70% of Dooley's items are unplayable or something like whatever
A
the
lot of them
number
are
was.
bad, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
They've
like
been working on it.
in the past it was much worse, right? In terms of
Oh, for
like
sure.
the percentage of good items to bad items or playable items to bad items. And I think that like what's happened is that as Dooley's gotten better, Mac has kind of had this has had this growing problem where his items don't talk to one another and he has all
Yeah,
these kind of disparate lines that don't flow into each other nicely. So
I think Dooley has that as well, and it kind of also leads to a lot of people being like, "Oh, all these shops
Yeah.
suck," because like if you're running like burn build, for example, there's like no friends that interact very well with the burn build other than like Firefly, for example. And so
Mhm.
like any friends you find in the shop, even if they're good items individually, you can't run them in your build, so it just feels like, oh, that's just a complete waste. And there's a lot like that, like dinosaurs. You can only run dinosaurs with dinosaurs. So if you're running like crit core or something, you can't really just be like, all right, well, I'll just take a couple of them. You got to have like the whole set or it doesn't really work, stuff like that. So I think that kind of leads to that narrative being a little bit more common than like the items actually being bad. They just don't work together as well as maybe on someone like Vanessa.
yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, like for a long time, Dooley also had lots of items that just
That's
actually were
also
bad
they were
too.
just bad, yes.
Yeah, but Mac's problem is less. You're right that his items are like all terrible. They're not all terrible, although he does have some like unbelievably bad items like crocodile tears and shrinking potion and stuff. Like he has
Yeah.
some. He actually also has some real stinkers. But like it's more like what you described with Dooley, where like just the disparate parts of his kit don't speak to one another, and also his Mac only skills are really weird, like so bizarre.
Oh yeah.
He has like 6 or 7 skills that are like for potions only,
Yeah.
but like potions are probably like 10 or 20% of the runs you play on Mac, and then he has like 2 skills like vital renewal and hardly working that are
Incredibly, yeah,
like the
good, yeah.
best, like crazy, and like the best skill for like the other 80% of builds. So you have so you have a very strange situation where like generally as Mac there's like exactly one skill that you like really want, and and it's on Zosima, the Mac only skill vendor.
Mm.
And then unless you're potions, in which case there's like 4 skills you really want,
Yeah.
but like you're barely ever potions. So it's like it's very strange. It's like the skill his skill pool is like the inverse of his item pool in a way,
Yeah.
for the Mac only skill. So that's a little bit funky too.
Yeah, Dooley's got some weird skills as well. So
And he also
almost all of
has
them are core based. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, he also Dooley has some weird skills, but yeah, at least you're like in theory you get a core every game, right? So
Yeah.
they're
It
more
was definitely worse in the past when you were ditching the core like every single game.
Yeah.
But since they've become more like core to your build, it's definitely been better. But he also has like a couple skills that just don't make any sense. Like there's this one gold skill that's just like when you level up, upgrade a bronze item.
Yeah.
Like
oh
it's like the
Yeah.
worst skill in the game, and
Yeah.
it's been there the whole time.
synthetic
I don't know.
fabrics or whatever it's called,
It's advanced synergistics or something like that.
advanced
I don't know.
synthetics.
Yeah.
Synthetics, that's what it is. Yeah, it's so bad.
Have you
I
ever
don't think
made
I've
party like it's 1999 work?
there. Yeah, there's somebody in the Discord that does it all the time. So what he does is he collects a bunch of small like bronze
Yeah,
friends from like
I've tried this
Satcom.
strat before.
Yeah.
I love this strat. It's cool.
And then he when you die, there's like the upgrade everything to gold option, and that triggers party like it's 1999. So he clicks that and just
Oh my
buffs up some
god.
burn item, or
That's
it's
so
usually a
sweet.
burn
I didn't
item.
even think of it with I was playing before
Yeah.
they added the like gold level up thing. I was trying to like I would play burn core usually because it gives plus burn when you upgrade the friends, and I would like hold all these like copper eds and whatever else
Mhm.
garbage friends in my inventory and then like upgrade them as like cinders. Like basically
Yeah.
like I'd be like buying cinders from the shop. And it was not too bad if you got it on your as your first silver skill, but um
The death
I guess
option is
I
really
get
funny.
yeah, I guess I should say that like yeah, I see what you're saying about the other thing I was gonna say about Mac is he has no diamond Mac unique event. So like
Oh,
dual
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
Dooley has like the
The workshop,
workshop
yeah,
And
and
the workshop is so insane
is
right
it's
now.
really good right
Like
now for
yeah, but
sure.
sales
that feels
pitch or
like
the
the
pig one is
actual
also
like
insane.
The pig
yeah.
one's crazy too. The double the value of something or whatever it
Yeah,
Well,
is. Yeah.
double the
Nexus is
value of your
not amazing currently,
no,
I
but it's four
feel, but
XP.
it's okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's
It's
got 4
five
XP too.
XP
Yeah.
actually, right?
Oh yeah,
Because it
because you
gives
like for
the
the encounter. Yeah.
because you
Let
get the
me
node XP too.
check.
Or no, because it would
Um,
be. I guess it's a diamond mob, so that's 3 XP, and then you get the one from the node XP, right?
no,
I don't
the
remember.
mob gives 4 currently, according to
Oh,
Bazaar.
really? Okay. All right. The mob
So
does
yeah.
give 4. Okay. So
So
it's 5 XP.
it's
I mean, that's pretty good.
solid. It's definitely not bad, but Dooley's currently makes me feel a little bit like if I hit that, then I'm like, okay, no, this is just 10 wins.
Yeah, with
I
how
think
good the
that's
cores are right now. Yeah.
yeah. The cores are strong. That one like scales in power with how good the cores are. I would say. Also with how
Especially
good
because it's
friends are.
like uh
Yep.
10% max health on top of the core upgrade.
That's true. I forgot
So
about that part.
it's
Yeah.
insane combo.
Back when we would all ditch the cores, you'd still click that option just
Yeah,
to get the extra 10%
yeah.
HP. Yeah.
Yeah. That one might be a little strong. Like if you compare it to the other two options, I'm trying to think of times when I didn't click that, and the answer is when I had gold cybersecurity. Is when
Yeah,
I did
Oh,
like
that's
I
the
true.
don't
Yeah.
think I've
upgrade a friend is the
yeah.
only
Or up
time I've ever done
or
done
upgrading
something
old
else.
Mamasaur or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
especially now when like it feels like you need to get to day 3 million to be level 13. It's
Mhm.
very crazy when it's like, oh, I got my diamond core like 8 days ahead of schedule. So
Yeah,
it's like,
it goes nuts.
oh.
There's some
But
forbidden tech to get it at level 7 as well. If you get like an early machine learning or Sterling or whatever, and you get like a gold core, and then
yeah,
you buy a silver combat core, it'll still show the option for upgrading your core, and it'll upgrade both of them so you get a diamond on 7.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, so
Just
so does it work so if your core is already gold, it doesn't show you the option?
That's correct. Normally, yeah. If you have any silver core in your inventory, it
Oh,
shows, but if you have a gold one,
okay.
it doesn't.
I guess
So
I
if you
get
get
you.
a combat core, then it shows back up again.
That's
Yeah.
cool. And it does
Oh,
upgrade
cool.
both if you have both, right?
It does, yeah. Pretty much everything
Okay.
that says like when you blank the core or blanks the core,
I,
it'll work on all cores in your
I just am
inventory.
curious as to the mechanics because I've not played Dually since
Yeah.
that
Oh, I get you.
change. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It works on all of them.
I think
that's cool.
overall I did notice it very much when so I haven't done an overview video for Dooley due to my annoying ass cough, but I've been thinking a lot about what it would look like, and I obviously have done one for Mac, I have done one for Pig, and I have done one for Vanessa. And the thing that's so stark, because my Mac one was prior to any of his expansions being added, and one of the big reasons why I haven't revisited it is because neither of the expansions connect to basically anything on the original overview. It's like the slow like quest thing technically connects to Femur, and then it's like technically the regen quest thing, I guess you could say, connects to Moostaff. But that's been the real crusher, is just that Moostaff kind of was his glue item in terms of being the thing that
Yeah, the
made
connecting the builds together.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
I agree
made
with you.
regen
Mm.
items synergistic with max kit as a whole. And now that it's a gold large, it's just not something you're ever reliably going to find. And I think, I mean, for me, that was the pain point. That was when I stopped playing Mac and when I went to toggling between Dooley and Vanessa pretty much, just because it feels like you just have no way of interconnecting your build. So whatever you decide, this is what I'm forcing on Mac, you're just forcing that thing on Mac. Um, and I think it's a little bit of a shame because when he came out, at that point in time, it was kind of the opposite because it was prior to Vanessa, like us really getting to play a lot with the gang and before some reworks to her like general items. And it was before Pygmalion had investment opportunities. And those expansions are where these other characters like really, really got their own like glue pieces.
Mm.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
it's just been the opposite for Mac, where he got anti glue pieces, and then his glue pieces got moved up in rarity.
Yeah, I actually think that the first pig expansion was not glue pieces, but the most
Yeah.
recent two pig expansions are like for sure glue pieces that like
Yeah, exactly
really
like that.
connect the different parts of his kit together, which has been huge for pig. I think like I'm really happy with his current state. So
Dewey's
Mhm.
kind of interesting with that, where like he's only got 2 expansions so far, and the majority of the items in them don't connect anything, but he's got
Yeah.
like 1 or 2 in each that actually do. Because like dinos are their own thing, but crude tools works really well with a lot of existing stuff, and then a lot of the bugs don't work super well with anything, but Firefly in particular is a super good thing with like
Yeah.
burn builds and a lot of other stuff. So he's kind of got like a couple glue things each time, but like the majority of the expansion wasn't. So I'm curious if they're going to give us more of the same in the next one, or if it's going to be like more similar to like investment opportunities where it's a bunch of just like generically good core kind of items.
I think the one thing that I appreciate a lot about Dooley, at least, is that Um, he suffers the least in my eyes from lacking glue pieces
Because of the cores,
because,
right? Yeah.
as a character, right, like his cores tend to have very loose criteria in the sense that you just need to play items that are good or are fast or work well.
Yeah, most of them, yeah.
And I think a lot of the time, like it will be really fun. I'm hoping especially that we get like some kind of relic synergy to make it easier
Yeah.
to actually play Primal Core and Dino Sawyer, even when you're not
That would be
necessarily
super
playing a
nice, yeah.
dino board, especially because that would mean that if you have an easier time being dino adjacent, then that would be the glue that lets you sometimes transition into a dino build without forcing it from like day two.
Yeah,
Um,
because like Rex doesn't need dinos. He could work with relics. We just don't have enough, so
yeah.
it's almost always
It
used
would be
sometimes. Yeah, I get what you
really
mean.
thick to, honestly, conceptually, if they ever gave us something that makes it so that you can transform the core into a specific other
Yeah.
core.
I heard like a long time ago they mentioned like Toby, like the guy, one of the
Yeah.
main developers. He said that was something they had planned for the future, but obviously it hasn't been implemented yet. But I'm sure it's like something that's at least been
That would
talked about.
be,
So
yeah, that would be really awesome because so often it feels like it's especially the core and crit core are very mandatory for like specific items being
yeah,
viable in the late stages of the game.
yeah, and so it would be nice to be able to just like, oh, I found this, and now I can switch my core into something that works with this item instead of just being like,
Right.
well, guess I'll throw it out. Yeah.
And not necessarily having that happen like every game because it's like that on every character, right? You don't
Mm.
transition from one build to another. You don't make a big pivot in every single game.
At
But
least having it as an option.
Dooley feels terrible at pivoting, but he's so good at playing tempo that if you're playing tempo, then you're not really in a super specific build anyway, so then it's like the least of a pain point on Dooley conceptually.
Yeah, the main pivot you have with Dooley right now is just the Nitro Hammer setups, because those don't rely
Yeah.
on cores. They just need freeze items. So
And I think that's been so helpful in terms of boosting my enjoyment of playing Dually, both Nitrogen
hmm
Hammer and Hydraulic Press. I got them right this time.
you got
No,
it.
but those two are so good for exactly that, where they just really let you have viable options that aren't tied to which core you selected at level 3. So
Mhm.
I think as long as we just get more options like that, I'm not even gonna be too mad if
Yeah,
Dooley doesn't get any real glue items.
yeah, I would love, like, the main thing I would love is just like more like kind of payoff items or like build around items that are
Hmm.
bad with cores but good with other stuff. So you'd want to
Yeah,
build around them instead of your core and pivot into it. I think those would be fun for sure.
but
I
it
don't know what
definitely
those would be,
like
but
I
Mhm.
think it's already night and day. I'm sure you'll agree, but like it's night and day compared to when we didn't have hammer and press as options on the wall.
Yeah, for sure. Like before, when the cores were kind of bad, it was mostly just drill. Like there was some other stuff you could run, but it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
certainly less common than drill. But yeah, those two are definitely nice in the current meta to have as
yeah.
an option to work towards.
And
I
I'm
just I'd love more of
almost
them.
having the reverse of that on Vanessa now that Keg isn't like a super attractive option. Where like
Mm.
it's so hard to pivot out of things, especially because so many of Vanessa's items are. We can kind of this transitions us into state of the meta.
Yeah, I
We
mean
can
we've
talk
been
about
in
that
state
for a
of the
little
meta
bit.
honestly for a
Like
while
it's been
now.
very like adjacent. We were more in something that was neither the original topic of the week nor the state of the meta, but everyone knows that our
Yeah,
categories are
it's a
like
loose
made up
discussion. It's
anyways. Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
Suggestions.
They are suggestions, guidelines, one might even say. But yeah, when it comes to Vanessa right now, I feel like my biggest issue with her is that so many of her items are so upgrade hungry, and
Mm.
now that you get much less levels, it's much harder to reliably get those upgrades. So a lot of the time it feels like if I'm finding a transition, but my transition pieces aren't high enough rarity, it's very hard to make that switch.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of been the nice thing about Dually is that a lot of the time you can start to transition without necessarily needing to have things of very specific rarities. It's usually just you want at least like a gold nitrogen hammer, or if you're going for hydraulic press, you do want to make sure that you were able to get a level 7 upgrade on it somehow, since you needed to
Mm.
be able to viably kill things even before you reach that point where you can make it go off super fast with the remote. Because I find like even at 20 seconds, if you just haste it a bit with a metronome, or battery it a little bit, or just anything to make it go off at
Yeah,
like
early game it can. Yeah.
14, 15, if it kills, you're good.
Mm.
But that's why it's so rarity dependent, because if it doesn't kill, you can't run it on your board.
It's kind of interesting. Like that's at least the case in the current meta. In the past, Dooley has been very upgrade dependent, and it is with the cores,
Yeah,
but they added the level 7 thing to help. But like
yeah,
when bugs were super popular and like friend builds, those ones are always like incredibly like you need to upgrade these or they stop working basically.
yeah.
Um,
And at that point in time, I think if Bug Dually had been the main way people played Dually in this state of the game, where we're so much lower level, I think that
mhm.
build might have felt like really crappy to play.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah,
definitely.
you're more upgrade star. Like I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
so upgrade starved on this patch. Like
Mm,
not saying that that's necessarily like obviously all my opponents are equally upgrade starved, so that
yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
like complaining about it from like a personal luck standpoint. But um, yeah, like there's just a lot of games where you just never see Sterling or like
Yeah.
you just can't reliably upgrade any card in any game. Like you just have
Yeah.
to be. I guess you can reliably upgrade your core as dually, but for everyone
everything
else with
else,
every
yeah.
other item, yeah,
Yeah, and
like
that's
you
definitely
can't
made Dooley
100%
feel like
depend on.
even more crazy too. The fact that right now he has that like
Yeah,
unique
I'm
advantage too.
honestly fine with it. Like I said, I think that
Yeah, it's starting
like
to feel like they're finding that to be his identity. And it's very nice because it means that if that's what I want to do, I can always queue up Dooley. And when I want to
Mhm.
do something else, then I
There's the
can
other three
not
characters.
play Dooley. Yeah.
Yeah, he felt like before they added, like when they took out the 7, but before they added back in the core upgrades, he felt like really bad because you were
Yeah.
just gambling on Sterling showing up the whole game, and if he didn't, you were on like day 10 with a silver core, just hoping for the best.
Yeah.
It was rough.
And it's definitely, it makes sense if they want Dooley to be more core centric, which I think it makes sense that that's something we
It's
want,
kind
and
of
that's
his,
his
yeah,
unique
his
mechanic.
theme.
We do need the ability to make the core be relevant, and you can't find it in shops. You can find scrap metal,
Yeah, scrap
but you
metals.
know,
It's
the
it's a
medium.
gold medium item with no tags, so it's really hard to find. Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the. Is it artificial intelligence? Is that the skill that
It's
upgrades the
machine
machine
learning is.
learning?
Yeah.
Very, again, duly and confusing names. Those are
Yeah, a little
ish
bit.
the same thing. So,
They're
you
close.
know. Makes sense. I just remember that it had a brain as the icon. Um,
It does, yeah. It's
but yeah,
the little brain one.
machine learning is also like you're just never gonna find skills reliably on like any character that isn't Mac, and it's because Mac like has 5 character skills or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has a tiny pool. It's
Yeah,
weird, but yeah.
which is
Do you
also
want to move on
weird.
to board of
Like
the week?
yeah, I'll just closing thoughts on the Mac
Yeah, go ahead, go
thing.
ahead.
It feels almost as if he's missing like half of his skills. You
Yeah,
know?
there's
On Mac, yeah. He's
remember
got
remember like a million episodes ago, maybe it was our first episode or like our second episode, we previewed some max skills that were like data mined out of the game. And
Mhm.
one of them was like your large poison items have like plus 20 poison.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I
that skill
remember.
never existed. That skill
Oh,
was
those
never
ones,
in the
yeah.
game. The
There's ones
skill was
for.
never.
To be
Sorry,
fair,
go
Yeah, I
ahead.
don't know.
I'm kind of glad that particular skill never made it into the game.
Yeah, that was kind of crappy. But my point is that it actually does feel like he was supposed to have more skills. Is what is
He
kind
does
of
have
my
very few,
point.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know. It's
especially it
strange.
does mean that like every Mac I face has vital renewal, and then I cry in the corner because stop vitally renewing me. I will set you on fire if you vitally renew me.
I mean, burn is like one of the things that can be competitive with
Yeah,
regen, right? Is like certainly has a better chance than weapon damage coming out
Yeah,
of
because
dually.
mainly
yeah,
because
for
of the
sure.
interaction where like the burn goes off first and ticks twice as fast. So if you get to like
Yeah,
half their max HP, it'll tick half and
Yeah.
then it'll kill them. Yeah.
yeah,
And it always just seems like for whatever reason is like when you have combination, you don't even need to have fully half their max HP a lot of the time. A lot
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
time you because you're also doing like
chip
incidental other
damage.
stuff
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
Yep.
that you don't actually need that to get over the line. So I do feel like burn is pretty well positioned against Mac.
especially of course ignition core. I think I've felt at least especially that the scaling on ignition core feels so much better than the scaling on the weaponized core, and I think a big part of it is the fact that it goes from 2 to 4, so it
Mm.
doubles when you get it to gold, whereas the
Yep.
weaponized goes from 20 to 30, which is only a 50% increase.
Yeah, and it's also burn just kind of intrinsically scales itself as you apply more and more of it.
Yeah.
So even doubling it is
Yeah.
more than doubling the DPS and so
It's
on. Yeah.
weird how like it feels like so much of the issue is that the weaponized core is so designed around the possibility of buffing other weapons early that like whenever that's
Yeah.
not really what you're doing, it gets really awkward. Whereas ignition core is the opposite, where like I don't like
Yeah,
I feel like they
it's
balance it around people not buffing burn items with it
Yeah,
because
because there's
that's just not what people have been doing for so
yeah,
Yeah,
there's
long.
it's
just no
just
burn items
wide
to buff.
weapons right now as a
Yeah.
strategy is just so weak when you're going up
Yeah,
against like
for
a pig
sure.
who's stacking 4,000 shield at
He's just
second
immortal.
7
Yeah.
and then on the other hand is a Mac who's stacking 800 regen at 7 or whatever. So it's like you have like these twin constraints coming from the other characters that are making weapon damage, like wide weapon strategies, extra unattractive. Um, Whereas like, and that's probably some of the source of Vanessa's frustrations
Though I
as
will
well.
say that in the games where you manage to consistently get something like the stuff that makes you scale aggressively off of slows, like if you have that little the small weapon that
Yeah, if you
buffs
have
adjacent
trains, yeah, like
weapons,
obviously
or
that's
if you have
nuts.
trained, yeah.
Yeah.
Or even if you just have the medium weapon that you can the like quest weapon and you get that with the like slow
Oh,
version.
cauterizing blade, yeah.
Yeah, cauterizing blade also works really well. The issue that I've mainly found is that sometimes you don't find them, and the other options like pistol shrimp and catfish don't feel like they get there in the slightest against Mac and Pig currently.
Mhm.
Especially if you don't just find shot glasses for the shrimp.
Yeah,
Or
that makes sense.
I've not been finding Zoarcid very consistently, which is one of the only things that can give you enough targeted haste boosts to make like a catfish potentially outdo regen, at least in some of the earlier fights, until you can get something bigger going.
Well, they nerf catfish too, right? Like that was one of the cards that got
Yeah,
bonked.
I
Or
believe
did it
that
get
is
bonked,
the
or did they just
case.
lower the poison?
Let's have a look.
I think it got bonked.
I think yeah, it's 6 seconds now. It was 5 before,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
It's 6 seconds for. I think they have a patch history. Yeah, 4.0 was the latest. Yeah, it got bonked, and it also got nerfed in. Oh no, that was back in the 1.0 first
Okay, so it was just
hotfix
it
it got
just got
nerfed,
bonked,
but
but
yeah, it
that
just got
that
bonked
for
recently.
poison, that is very meaningful. Like the speed
Hmm.
of application um matters a lot on
Yeah, and
poison,
I
like
think,
because of the
but
ticking
I think
nature of
even
it.
more so, it's just the fact that Vanessa got more small bronzes, and Zoarcid is like the only
That's
really
true
good
too.
targeted haste now. So it feels a lot like Catfish was already not the best, and it doesn't work with anything from the new expansion. So you're much more incentivized to try to make sure that you're in slow. But then they nerfed Dart Launcher, so it's not available at Bronze anymore. Surugatana isn't available at Bronze. Oni Mask is a lot weaker, especially in the early game, and then Shuriken is also not much of an early game item, but it is available at Bronze. So you've ended up in this awkward situation where even Cauterizing Blade is silver only. So you just don't have items that start at bronze which scale meaningfully. Which means that obviously Onimask scales
Except for shrimp.
amazingly, but
Except for mantis shrimp, right? Like
yeah, Mantis Shrimp
shrimp
is like
is the exception. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but more than anything, Mantis Shrimp doesn't scale amazingly either until you have either something like Dart Launcher, which again starts at silver, or Shot Glasses, which starts at silver. Um,
Yeah, a multi-target slow, and they all start at
so
silver. I
you're
got you.
stuck in this situation where an Onimask scales really great and starts at bronze, but it's crit that makes it scale, so you get good scaling on it later. So it's the same like awkward thing, meaning
Yeah.
Hmm.
that I felt very frustrated having to rely on finding silver items to be able to meaningfully scale because that's just not very consistent. Uh,
Gotcha.
and because
Okay.
Yeti shrimp, Yeti crab is the same issue where like Now against like Regen Mac, like you have no shot if you're trying to like Yeti crab a jellyfish and that's your quote unquote
Mm.
scaling damage. Works great in some metas, especially if you have good defenses too. But against like Mac, he'll be sitting there with like 4,000 regen and you'll do like 80 poison per tick, and it's like,
Yeah, poison has like no chance against the regen build.
yeah. So yeah, that's been my thoughts on the kind of state of the meta and why Vanessa feels awkward. It's like I think if you're really really good, you can make it work because you know exactly what you're looking for and exactly what to do when you find it. But compared to when it felt like you had so many good options at bronze, that's why it's so much tougher now. And I'm guessing like one of the big things about Pig, right, is that he has a lot of good stuff that starts at bronze currently, I want to say.
Yeah, I will say so. Like Piggle's launcher
Yeah.
is like it real what it did two things. One is it's itself a good bronze item, but it also made Ganjo a good bronze item again. Where previously Ganjo had kind of been like power crept. So that part of this comes from also the fact that Showcase got bonked. So Showcase is 6 seconds now instead of 5 seconds. It's still excellent. Um, but like comparatively, Ganjo's stocks are way up this patch to the point and it's not just from the Piggle launcher, it's also from the Piggle's protectors, which get double shield scaling. So like you have essentially like the old quote unquote combo was like you'd put bandages on one side of your Ganjo and then like a Fang on the other side of your Ganjo, and that was like your day one board when there was like a 4 slot board because you'd have like a triple scale, right, where you're scaling your shield, your heal, and weapon damage in those 4 slots. So now it's like
Mhm.
you get 6 slots, but you get to play a launcher which itself can use all three of the Ganjo scaling numbers. And then you also have on the other side of the Ganjo, you can still have bandages, or you could have a 4 second Piggles protector that gets double shield scaling. So it's essentially like you're getting 5x scaling out of your Ganjo if you have um, Piggles launcher on one side and uh, Piggles protector on the other, and then like Fang as your last item or whatever. And that's going to be super good day one, even if the
Mhm.
Ganjo is bronze.
The
So
Piggles launcher has also been one of those items that's incredibly rough for the poison Vanessa options like Catfish or Yeti Crab to face.
yeah, it helps with poison day one big time for sure.
Yeah, because
If you're
it's
scaling
just
the heal.
your the poison builds scale slowly enough that having just like cleansing 2 or 3 poison on every activation, it definitely just gets you there in terms of oftentimes they just don't have any other damage, right? Like the whole point with going with one of those
Yeah, they're
strategies
just
is that
weak.
you're
Yeah.
supposed to be able to forego having additional damage sources and focusing on defense. But when the Pygmalion boards oftentimes have growth and cleanse, and the Mac boards outgrow you by an order of magnitude, and the dually boards always feel like you're facing yourself, but they always have the silver that you're desperately hoping to find. Then it's like everything beats you in the mid game if you don't manage to assemble like it's just so much harder to assemble what you need to be able to beat the boards that feel like they're just you but better.
All
But
right. Speaking
it'll
of boards,
Yeah,
is
we'll
there
we'll
one
we'll
of the
move on to
week?
the board of the week. I'm honestly not, as we mentioned, I'm not too doomer on Vanessa. I still very much think that she seems like a very powerful character.
Yeah, she's not
Um,
horrible or anything. We're just talking about the fine distinctions, like
and
the
we don't have anyone here who's been putting in that level of effort to make it work, and I'm sure before long we'll end up with someone on here again who's like, this is how I do it, and it'll be a total eye opener. And that's how it goes a lot of the time. You just don't have time to like test everything in this game.
Mhm.
But that's half the fun, and it's a big part of the fun of this podcast. And coincidentally, the board of the week is actually a Vanessa board that was submitted to
Oh,
me by um, I've got it here. PDB, who is one of the members of Sixten's Discord. And he submitted this Vanessa board, which is, I guess it's like post nerf still making keg work, and with this watchdog that always feels quite powerful whenever I see people put it on the board. But we'll have a look. This is my first time looking at it as well, so
I'm watching.
yeah,
it's
that's
pretty.
It's
that's
really
just a
fast. It's pretty
solid
brutal.
keg. That's
Yeah.
pretty
Oh, he's
brutal.
got shiny silencer on the keg.
Yeah,
I see.
shiny
Yeah,
silencer,
that went
obsidian
fast.
keg, gold bloodlust as well. That really just makes it pop.
I really like that the dog relic. I take it like quite often from the
The
temple if I
blazed
get it.
owl warden.
Yeah, like
Yeah, that one. I
you
would just
can
call him the
just
dog.
see like the ignition rounds hit
Yeah,
like
it goes crazy.
60s. I think they've got ones queued up too. It's just that the pig
Mhm.
simply died before that could go off. I was saying earlier that the absence of keg makes itself very felt in terms of having an easy out, but I do like the direction they went with the item because I feel like it's much healthier when it's more of like
It's
more
healthier when it
niche of a
requires you to do
board.
the other
Yeah.
20% of the damage. Yeah, like I agree that like what made Keg so frustrating was that you threw away especially to lose to is like because you threw away everything that made whatever your build was your build just to make this one item go as fast as possible, and that it was like you couldn't even tell what their board was because their board is now just Keg. Whereas like now it's like you have to keep some semblance of a board to do the other 20% of the damage in order to actually kill your opponent. So or you have to get crit and obsidian, which is like okay, fine, then that's a high roll, then whatever. But
Yeah,
like,
because that was like the big thing too was how easy it was to always be able to get either crit or obsidian together.
Mhm. Especially with the temple.
Especially,
Yeah.
yeah, and when we didn't have the nerf to correctness crest either, it was even easier. Like if you ever had
yeah.
just deadly
How in
crest.
retrospect how OP was Corzina's crest slash Vanessa's amulet for the long? It was maybe one of it was in my mind it was a secretly OP card for an extremely long time that was very slept on. That people basically just like ignored a little bit, even because it's like hard to get your head around how like insanely good like
Yeah, I,
30%
I
crit
think it was
is in the middle of the
also
game.
one of those things where at the time when crit wasn't really an archetype and more the only way of scaling into the late game that many of Vanessa's items had because they were mostly like flat stuff. At
Mhm.
that point, like originally, I think it made quite a lot of sense for that item to be so good because Vanessa's flat damage items needed to have crit to be late game viable. But then with like every expansion, she's gotten more and more things that scale competently. And then it kind of became the opposite, right? Where if you're already scaling really well and you can have like a deadly crest for like 80% crit, then you just go into complete overdrive and kind
Yeah,
of,
I think
yeah.
ultimately it isn't long-term tenable to have a character be like have no scaling and be the flat damage character. I think that's kind of like not like I think I'm happy
Yeah,
they moved away from that. In the same way
yeah,
I'm
it
happy
makes a
they
lot of
moved away from
sense.
Pig being quote unquote the late game character. Like
Yeah.
cuz I think that's just like a overly restrictive box to put him in, and it makes it so that it's just like frustrating for other heroes to
I
face
still
him in the
very
late
much
game.
feel like
Mhm.
the characters have like retained their core identities. Like when I play any of the four characters, and I do play all of them, it very much feels like, yeah, this is the character I'm playing. The only one that's feeling a little bit lost now is Mac, but I'm hoping like another expansion or like an overhaul or something could kind of bring that back.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with him because it's not even like he's weak either.
Yeah.
That's the tough part. It's that
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing when a character is bad, right? Because that's like very easily fixable in a sense. Like you just change the numbers on the cards to be until they're good.
Yeah.
But when a character is strong but doesn't feel fun or satisfying to play, that's a bigger
But I
problem.
feel like we've ended up saying that more than a few times about Dooley, and then we can look at where he
Well,
is
and then, right, and
now,
they
and
brought it back,
that's
and I
the
think
big
that
reason
yeah, they
why,
fixed
like,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
I feel confident that they have it in them to fix that, and when they
Hmm.
do, I'm sure he'll be really fun to play. So it's just something to look forward to, right?
I think that's a
Of course.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to wrap it up. We'll do our socials as usual. We'll start off with the guest. Natalie,
Oh,
where can people find you?
sure. So you can find me at youtube.com/Natalie. So same as you can see on the screen here, it's spelled the exact same. And then also Twitch TV/Natalie as well. So uh, I stream like at least a few times a week. Pretty much always Dooley currently, although once Stell comes out, I'm planning on taking some time to learn her. And then I try to put out videos every day or two. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check me out.
Very nice. And as per usual, it'll be in the description, same as always. Walter, what about you? Where have you been hanging out?
As usual, I'm in the chat. I think Goose went on vacation. He's back now, but Goose went on vacation, so I had to hang out in other people's chats. A lot of whispers and Ragnar out there. So just come say hi to me.
Yeah. And me myself, it's been kind of a hiatus. I got back to work recently. There were a lot of stuff to catch up on. My goal is still that I really want to get back to streaming and making videos and all of that, but this accursed cough
Oh,
haunts me, same as I've been saying for weeks on end. I did consult a doctor about it, but they pretty much said it's nothing to worry about, but you're gonna have to wait until it goes away. So
oh.
that's the
Well,
annoying part. Um,
hopefully you feel better soon.
yeah, it's been not too bad. My energy levels are largely returning, so since it's not nearly as bad for streaming as it is for like trying to record longer videos where obviously I'd have to change from a one shot style to something where I can edit out the coughing, which would make it like
Mm.
3 times as much work. Streaming, like, I don't think anyone is going to be too upset if there's a little cough here and there. So, I mean, I'm semi hopeful. I've been enjoying Dooley. He's very, very vibes to play. I'm also, of course, very excited for Stell. It's just fun when we get new stuff, but who knows? I'm not going to make any promises, but you can always drop me a follow if you want to be notified when I do go live. But at the very least, you'll be able to get more of us right here because next week we'll be back with another new guest. As always, you will be able to find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or via RSS feed for your podcast listening app of choice. And at the very least, there'll be more of us there. So hopefully, we'll see some of you there too. And in the meantime, wherever you are, hopefully you have a wonderful morning, day, evening, or night. And until the next time.